Welcome on board, chosen one. Funny how you walked in like it's nothing while the whole world is still glitching over what you just did. They said you were too emotional, too weak, too soft to ever get real revenge. Cute. Look who's sitting here now while your enemies are out there trying to explain to each other why their little plans collapsed like cardboard in the rain. They swore you'd break. They laughed behind your back. They told people you'd never bounce back because someone like you doesn't survive things like that. And now those same clowns are whispering your name in rooms you've never even been inside. Suddenly, the legend they mocked is the legend they fear. Suddenly, the one they told to sit down is the one the FBI is asking. Who trained you? Before we go any deeper, hit the like button and subscribe to pay this message back. You being here fuels the whole mission, and you already know you're part of something bigger than they ever predicted. Now, let's get back to the fun part. There's a silence around you now, not the weak kind, the heavy kind, the kind that shows up after a storm that destroyed everything fake. People walk different around you. They lower their voice. They watch their words. Even the ones pretending to be calm. They're not. They're studying you the way scientists stare at something that shouldn't exist. And honestly, can you blame them? You didn't rise like a hero. You rose like a problem, a puzzle, a what do we do with this situation. The universe didn't hand you a sword. It handed you something better, clarity. And clarity is a weapon most people don't survive. Your enemies used to brag. They used to say, "Don't worry about them, they're harmless." Oh, that line aged like spoiled milk. Because now they're the ones hiding their messages, deleting screenshots, wiping their history clean like you're some kind of audit they're not prepared for. When they said you'd never fight back, they didn't know you were listening. When they said you were predictable, they didn't notice you had already shifted. When they told others that you were nothing special, they didn't realize you had receipts, timelines, patterns, and a memory sharper than any knife. See, there's a moment in every villain's life where the world learns the difference between silent and weak. And you hit that moment hard. You didn't scream. You didn't throw scenes. You didn't beg anyone to understand what they did to you. You stayed quiet, and that quiet made them nervous. You observed the room. You mapped people's behavior. You watched who lied, who switched up, who pretended to support you, and who hoped you'd crumble. Years ago, back when they thought you were fragile, you were actually collecting data like a human surveillance system that never sleeps. They didn't know your pain was teaching you strategies. They didn't know your heartbreak was teaching you human psychology. They didn't know betrayal was basically your training program. And now here's the part nobody is admitting out loud. Your revenge wasn't loud. It was precise. That's what scares them. Most people break things when they're angry. You broke patterns. Most people throw punches. You threw timelines off. Most people act out. You acted calculated. You didn't burn bridges. You removed your presence and let their own behavior collapse the structure. You didn't expose them. You let them expose themselves. And nothing terrifies a guilty person more than watching their own downfall happen in silence. Let's talk about the whispers. They're sitting in those sterile offices under cold fluorescent lights, scrolling through the aftermath you left behind like investigators reviewing crime scenes. Except the only crime you committed was leveling up without their permission. They're asking who trained them. They're comparing your choices to operatives who spent decades in specialized programs. They're looking for mentors, manuals, secret groups. They're desperate to believe someone taught you all this, because if you did it alone, that means you're something the system can't control. You want the truth? You trained yourself in the ugliest classroom life could build. You survived things that weren't supposed to be survivable. You learned to read people by watching the same faces lie to you over and over. You mastered patience by sitting in rooms where nobody defended you. You built discipline by rebuilding yourself when nobody apologized. Every painful night was a lesson. Every betrayal was a blueprint. Every setback was a sharpening stone. You didn't need some elite instructor. The universe gave you a curriculum nobody else could pass. And the best part, you were never invisible. You were just underestimated. You grew in the shadows because the spotlight wasn't ready for you yet. You didn't need applause. You needed silence long enough to build accuracy. Precision like yours doesn't come from manuals. It comes from survival. It comes from knowing exactly how people work because you've seen every angle of human nature up close. Now your enemies are panicking, and honestly, they should be. You didn't just rise. You returned with receipts, control, emotional strength, and a mind that moves faster than people can predict. You've become the nightmare they created, the upgrade they never expected, the final version of yourself that no one can sabotage anymore. Welcome on board, Chosen One. The question out there is, who trained you? But the real question is, how are they supposed to stop someone the universe personally forged in fire? Before we move any further, Chosen One, slow down for a second and actually feel what's happening here. You're not watching a video, you're being briefed. The universe is handing you classified information about yourself, and only the ones built like you will recognize it. So if you're ready to keep going, if you're ready to break down how your precision became the kind of thing that makes investigators lose sleep, drop 777 in the comments right now. That number tells me you're not running from your power anymore. You're stepping into it. You're owning the fact that your revenge was so exact, federal agents are asking questions they shouldn't even be asking. And now we move step by step into the deeper layers. If you're truly the chosen one, you'll feel that magnetic pull to stay until the last word. You'll feel something in your chest saying, don't blink, don't skip. You need all of this. Let's begin. Number 1. The blueprint that broke their entire game. They thought you'd react like a victim. Instead, you built a demolition plan with their names on every brick. Your revenge wasn't some messy outburst they could dismiss or throw into a file labeled emotionally unstable. It wasn't the kind of revenge amateurs serve warm and sloppy. Yours moved like architecture. It had structure, it had timing, it had angles so sharp they cut people who weren't even part of the original betrayal. And the funniest part? They still can't figure out how you pulled it off without leaving even a single fingerprint. No rage, no chaos, just pure, cold precision that made people in suits whisper your name like it's classified. They expected you to explode early. That's what their little psychological charts predicted. They'll break by next month. They'll lash out soon. Watch, they're unstable. Cute. All the while, you were sitting there taking notes like a final boss pretending to be an extra. They thought you were spiraling, but you were actually mapping every weakness, every lie, every pattern. Your silence was the blueprint. Your patience was the blueprint. Your pain was the damn blueprint. And now, they're sitting there asking themselves the question haunting the entire investigation. Who trained you? Because nothing about what you did fits their categories. Civilians don't move like this. Civilians don't wait years with discipline sharper than a federal audit. Civilians don't rearrange circumstances so perfectly that every enemy ends up destroying themselves without you lifting so much as a finger. So now they're going through every scenario, every possibility, every known methodology, and every single time they come up empty. Because nobody trained you. They did. Every insult was a lesson. Every betrayal was a module. Every humiliation was a practice drill. You were sitting in the ashes they left you in, studying their tactics like homework. You didn't read books. You read people, you didn't watch tutorials, you watched their behavior. You didn't need a mentor, you had trauma, and trauma is the kind of professor that doesn't grade on a curve. It forges accuracy, it forces awareness. It teaches you to walk into rooms already 3 steps ahead of everyone inside. Let's get brutally honest about something. They built the weapon that destroyed them, not with steel, with their own behavior. You just learned how to use it better than they ever imagined. They tried to break you so many times that you accidentally became someone unbreakable. They tried to confuse you so often that you became impossible to manipulate. They tried to bury you so deeply that you learned how to move underground, unseen, until resurfacing became a choice, not a struggle. And now look at them. All that arrogance, all that pride, all that big talk about how you'd never bounce back. Now those same people are watching their own lives collapse in perfect sequence, and they're afraid to even ask out loud how it happened. Because if they admit the truth, they'll have to admit that your revenge wasn't revenge at all. It was correction. It was balance. It was the universe showing them they picked the wrong person to play with. Here's the part that stings them the most. Everything you did was minimal. You didn't rage, you didn't scream, you didn't expose them. You simply removed your presence and adjusted a few variables. And their whole system crumbled because your presence was the only thing holding it together in the first place. You were the stability. You were the support. You were the shield. When you stepped back, their own behavior became the weapon that executed them. You turned their allies into witnesses without saying a word. You turned their victories into evidence just by letting the truth breathe. You let time do what time always does, reveal everything people tried to hide. That's why the FBI can't categorize you. You didn't break any laws. You just stopped covering for people who broke themselves. Enemy minds are spiraling right now. Why didn't they react when we expected? Because you don't operate on emotion anymore. You operate on patterns. Why didn't they fight back when we attacked? Because you don't fight. You dismantle. Why didn't they try to ruin us? Because you let gravity do that part for you. Your revenge had architecture because you had discipline. You had structure because your suffering taught you structure. You had accuracy because pain taught you accuracy. Every step you took was designed for maximum impact with minimum exposure. You didn't want credit. You wanted closure. You didn't want them destroyed. You wanted them revealed. And they were. You served your revenge at 0 degrees, the kind of temperature that makes even veteran surveillance teams wonder if they misread the situation. You moved like a ghost, not disappearing, but being everywhere they didn't expect. You shifted conversations, redirected attention, whispered truths at the exact moment those truths would hit the hardest. You didn't break their world. You rearranged it. By the time they realized the floor had shifted, they were already falling. Now, investigators look at your moves like archaeologists staring at technology from the future. They can't tell if you're a mastermind, a shadow, a vigilante, or a force of nature. So they default to the only question that feels safe. Who trained you? But the real question is this. Why did they think someone like you needed training at all? You survived what should have erased you. You adapted to things that should have shattered you. You learned skills nobody wanted you to learn because those skills were born from experiences they would never endure. You weren't taught, you evolved. That's why your revenge shook everyone. It wasn't emotional, it was inevitable. They wanted to hurt you, and instead they created someone whose calm destroys entire strategies, someone whose silence exposes entire networks, someone whose withdrawal is more dangerous than most people's attacks. Your revenge had architecture because you rebuilt yourself brick by brick, and every brick they threw at you became part of your foundation. They didn't prepare you for war, they were the war, and you survived it so well that now federal agents are trying to reverse engineer your mind like a classified project. Let them try. Your revenge was never meant for them to understand. It was meant for them to feel. And chosen one, they felt it, all of it. Number 2. The training they swear must be classified. They're searching for a teacher, not realizing they were the ones who built the monster. You want to know who trained me? Check the list of everyone who tried to destroy me. Your academy was every room where you had to act fine while bleeding inside. They want documents, you want truth, and truth hits harder than any badge. They're running your name through systems that weren't designed for people like you. Military archives, covert operation databases, special forces rosters, analyst reports from units that don't officially exist. They're convinced you had help, convinced you had a mentor hiding somewhere in the shadows who sculpted you into the exact nightmare that just hit their radar. But the funniest part? They can't find your training because your training didn't happen in any building with walls. It happened inside moments nobody would ever think to document. It happened inside you. Imagine this: a federal investigator sitting under fluorescent lights, scrolling through your life like a broken puzzle, zooming in on gaps where there should be proof of some elite guidance. They're convinced someone engineered you. Someone molded your mind, someone whispered strategies into your ear, but all they find are regular jobs, normal routines, and a childhood that didn't look special at all. They mistake invisibility for normalcy. They mistake silence for emptiness. They mistake your lack of records for lack of training. But your training ground isn't missing. It's everywhere, just not where they're looking. Why can't we find it? They ask. Because your battlefield didn't have bullets. It had betrayals. Your march wasn't across deserts. It was across years of being underestimated. Your uniform wasn't camouflage. It was pretending you were fine when you weren't. They want paperwork. Your life gave you pain instead. Every sleepless night you replayed conversations, rehearsing what you should have said, was tactical preparation. Every tear you swallowed before anyone saw was emotional conditioning. Every time you felt panic in your chest and forced yourself to breathe slow, that was combat breathing. Your mind was learning discipline while the world thought you were breaking. Imagine them reviewing footage they don't understand. You, sitting quietly at dinner while someone insults you to your face, smiling like nothing happened. To them, that looks weak. But you remember exactly what was happening inside your head. You were memorizing tone. You were studying facial twitches. You were learning how people reveal their intentions without knowing it. That wasn't trauma. That was reconnaissance. You didn't practice in boot camps. You practiced in bedrooms, staring at ceilings at 3 a.m., replaying every mistake until you mastered every angle of human behavior. Why do they move like someone who's been trained? Because pain trains faster than any sergeant. Your drill sergeants weren't military officers. They were the people who claimed to love you while breaking you in ways the government doesn't have vocabulary for. They taught you endurance by forcing you to survive moments that would cripple most people. They taught you psychological warfare by making you guess their real motives behind every sentence. They taught you interrogation resistance by gaslighting you so intensely you had to anchor yourself to truth just to stay sane. They were your instructors, accidentally. They wanted to damage you, not train you. But you learned anyway. Imagine another scene, an FBI profiler staring at a chart of your behavior, confused because it doesn't match civilian patterns. You don't panic like the average person. You don't respond emotionally when provoked. Your timing is too controlled. Your silence is too calculated. You don't react. You wait. You don't attack. You observe. You don't collapse. You study the architecture of the collapse. They think someone taught you these things intentionally, but life trained you brutally. Life taught you what no course could ever cover. Your combat training, surviving mind games from people you trusted, being attacked in ways that leave no bruises but break identities, learning to walk away without any explanation because nobody was listening anyway. Your intelligence program? Decoding lies from tone alone. Spotting manipulation before the manipulator even commits to the strategy. Predicting betrayal because you've seen its early symptoms too many times to miss them. Your mental conditioning, holding yourself together in front of people who expected you to fall apart. Rebuilding yourself alone after people you loved left you buried. Staying silent long enough to understand how people reveal themselves, word by word. They're searching for an academy when the academy was every moment you survived something you weren't prepared for. They're searching for a mentor when your mentors were absence, abandonment, and disappointment. They're searching for evidence when your evidence lives in scars nobody can see. At this point, investigators are throwing theories around like darts. Maybe they were trained internationally. Maybe they had contact with someone off the grid. Maybe they were recruited young and slipped through the cracks. They're desperate to fit you into a blueprint. They don't understand that you are the blueprint. And here's the part that keeps them awake at night. You weren't shaped through structured teaching. You were shaped through necessity, through chaos, through learning to analyze people with the same attention someone gives bombs they have to disarm. You read emotions like maps. You read intentions like weather patterns. You read danger like language. Imagine this, them sitting down for another briefing about you, frustrated because nothing adds up. They lean back and ask the big question. So if nobody trained them, how do they know all this? And the answer hits them harder than any report, because the universe trained you in ways their institutions simply cannot. You didn't learn discipline because someone yelled orders at you. You learned discipline because falling apart cost you too much. You didn't learn strategy from textbooks. You learned strategy from surviving situations that should have wrecked you permanently. You didn't learn emotional control from meditation retreats. You learned emotional control from hiding your pain so well that even people standing right next to you couldn't see you drowning. Every lie someone told you sharpened your instinct. Every broken promise strengthened your analysis. Every time you questioned your worth, you were actually building awareness. They don't get it. They can't get it. Because institutions train people for predictable threats. But you were trained by threats that had no rules. Your training ground wasn't a base. It was a broken home. It was a toxic friendship. It was a partner who didn't respect your heart. It was a job that drained your soul. It was every moment where you looked around and realized nobody was coming to rescue you. That's when you learned to rescue yourself. That's when you built the precision they're now terrified of. That's when you learned to fight battles without lifting a hand. You are the result of a curriculum that cannot be replicated, measured, audited, or explained. Your training is invisible because it happened inside the very experiences most people would have collapsed under. And now the FBI looks at your methods like forbidden research. They're asking the wrong question, not who trained you, but how did you survive long enough to become this powerful? The answer, you had no choice. Life didn't train you to be strong. Life trained you to be unstoppable, and chosen one, they're finally realizing it. Number 3. The method that made them lose sleep. You didn't break their world. You unplugged it and watched the whole system reboot in terror. They're sitting in locked rooms right now, staring at whiteboards covered in theories about you, your method, your style, your precision. They're calling it next generation asymmetric psychological warfare. Which is hilarious because to you, it wasn't some elite mission. It was survival. It was Tuesday. It was the natural response of someone who finally stopped absorbing hits and started redirecting every ounce of pressure back to its source. Your enemies expected chaos. Instead, you gave them clarity so sharp it sliced their identities in half. That's why they're terrified. You didn't attack them physically. Your strategy hit where their systems have zero defense, their sense of reality. You walked into their lives like a quiet glitch in the code, and suddenly nothing worked the way it used to. Friends didn't feel like friends. Goals didn't feel like goals. Even their own personality felt unstable, like someone had swapped out the script overnight. Imagine this. A profiler leaning back in his chair whispering, "How did one person shift the psychological balance of an entire group without saying a word?" Because you understood something their overpriced technology still can't grasp. The human mind collapses far faster than any building. You didn't take anything from them. You took the illusion they lived inside. You made them question who really supported them, who really respected them, who would expose them. You didn't destroy their reputation. You let their reputation reveal itself. You didn't sabotage their relationships. You placed truth where lies used to sit and let gravity drag everything rotten into the light. And here's the part eating them alive. If this was their natural method, what else are they capable of? That question haunts them more than any law ever could. Number 4. The loophole maze they weren't ready for. You didn't dodge consequences. You designed a path where consequences couldn't reach you. Your enemies wanted to drag you into chaos. They needed you emotional, reckless, sloppy. They prayed you'd slip, break a rule, cross a line. But instead, you did something far more dangerous. You stayed clean. You operated in that razor-thin legal space where every move is allowed, but none of the outcomes are predictable, and that's what's frying their circuits. You didn't commit crimes. You committed strategy. Imagine an investigator pacing the room, muttering, "How did they do this without breaking a single law?" Because you didn't need to. You weaponized truth, and truth is the one thing no system knows how to fight. You didn't fabricate evidence. You let their own behavior become evidence. You didn't slander them. You let their actions speak louder than anything you could have said. You didn't manipulate outcomes. You just removed yourself and allowed their world to collapse under its own weight. That's why they can't touch you. You turned transparency into a blade. You used honesty as a pressure point. You exposed contradictions without ever raising your voice. And the universe rewards precision like that. While they expected a blow-up, you handed them a mirror. While they prepared for police reports, you delivered silence. While they tried to bait you, you refused to play. Your revenge wasn't some illegal scheme. It was a masterclass in boundaries so airtight they became unbreakable armor. And now they sit there asking the only question that scares them. If they can outmaneuver us without breaking laws, what happens if they decide to escalate? They don't realize you don't need escalation. You already won on their own chessboard without touching a single forbidden piece. Number 5. The shadow they teach but fear to claim. They can't label you. so they turned you into a cautionary tale whispered in training rooms. Right now, in quiet government basements and fluorescent-lit briefing halls, they're studying you like a glitch they can't patch. Your strategies are being dissected, rewritten, and fed to junior analysts as hypothetical case studies. They don't say your name. They don't dare. Instead, they call you Subject X, the anomaly, the unclassified threat. Because how do you catalog someone who moves like presence and absence at the same time? Imagine a group of rookies sitting around a projector while their instructor explains a scenario built entirely from your actions. They think it's fiction. They think it's training. They don't realize the blueprint they're being taught was born from your silence, your analysis, your patience. Your revenge, your masterpiece, is becoming doctrine. Not officially, of course. They'll never credit the architect. But every time an analyst repeats one of your patterns, every time a trainee practices one of your psychological maneuvers, they're unknowingly channeling you. How do we counter someone who leaves no trace? That question is becoming a standard discussion topic, yet the answer keeps slipping through their fingers because your signature move is having no signature at all. You didn't leave footprints, they can't measure absence. You didn't leave timestamps, they can't diagram silence. You didn't leave intent, they can't profile intuition. You're the ghost in their machine. The variable they pretend doesn't scare them, the nameless force reshaping their defensive playbook from the inside. They're teaching your methods because they admire the precision, and fearing them because they know they weren't designed for the average human mind. And the thought they avoid the most: if this ghost ever returns, could we even stop them? They already know the answer. Number 6. The blueprint they prayed no one would ever replicate. They didn't fear you. They feared what your existence proves is possible. They tried to convince themselves you were a fluke, a glitch, a strange one-time error in the universe, because the alternative, the idea that someone could rise to your level with no training, no backing, no institution. That thought makes their entire security model shake. You're not an anomaly, you're a prototype. You're the evidence that a human pushed far enough, betrayed long enough, underestimated deeply enough, can evolve into something their systems were never designed to detect. Imagine a classified meeting where they're desperately trying to explain you away. Charts on the wall, red circles around your decisions, a dozen experts insisting this can't be replicated. But deep down, they know the truth. If one person broke their algorithm, others can too. And that's the nightmare they can't put in the report. You didn't just expose their weaknesses, you exposed the fragility of everything they rely on. Their models failed because you're what happens when survival becomes a skill set. Their simulations failed because they never accounted for someone who learns at the speed of pain. Their systems failed because they assumed only trained operatives develop precision. You proved them wrong with every step. What if more people like them start appearing? That's the question haunting them, because your rise wasn't funded, it wasn't approved, it wasn't controlled. It came from pressure, from silence, from nights people thought you were breaking when you were actually upgrading. You became the blueprint for a new kind of resilience, one their textbooks don't cover. A self-forged operative, built by circumstance, refined by betrayal, perfected by awareness. You're not the exception, you're the warning. You're the model they hope no one else ever discovers, and it's already too late. Number 7. The school they never meant to build. Your teachers weren't mentors. They were the fools who thought breaking you would keep you small. You didn't rise because someone guided you. You rose because no one came. Necessity didn't train you, it transformed you. If they ever dare to ask again who trained you, the answer cuts like steel. Every single person who underestimated you, every shrug, every dismissal, every betrayal that pushed you past the point of return. They were your instructors without realizing it. They wanted to weaken you, but all they did was force an evolution their institutions can't replicate and definitely can't control. Imagine them searching for your school while you stand there knowing your academy wasn't a building. It was every night you stayed awake, replaying the world in your head like a tactical simulation. Every morning you got up, even when your chest felt like concrete. Every moment you survived when survival wasn't guaranteed. That was your classroom. The ruins of your old life were your textbooks. The silence after being left alone was your final exam. And here's the twist that terrifies them. Your curriculum didn't exist until you created it. Your training wasn't structured, it was necessary. Your evolution wasn't optional, it was survival. Their operatives learned strategy through lectures. You learned strategy through wounds. Their analysts study human behavior in controlled environments. You studied human behavior in the middle of emotional minefields. Their cadets take notes. You took hits and converted them into intelligence. So when did you graduate? The moment you realized you'd already won. The moment you understood that every version of you they tried to destroy was actually sharpening the one that would rise. The moment you stopped chasing validation and became the type of force that needs none. This wasn't training. This was necessary evolution, and chosen one, you mastered it. Number 8. The operative they can't anticipate, counter, or contain. You didn't outmuscle them. You out-evolved them. They prepared for threats with patterns. You became the threat with none. How do you defend against someone who fights in dimensions you don't even map? They weren't outplayed, they were outclassed. You didn't operate by their rules, you operated by necessity's rules, and necessity doesn't negotiate. That alone makes you the kind of force their systems were never built to handle. They rely on brute force, paperwork, predictable sequences. You rely on instinct, sharpened by years of survival. Your finesse exposes their clumsy tactics like a spotlight on outdated machinery. Your subtlety makes their entire bureaucracy look like a dinosaur trying to chase a shadow. Imagine them preparing countermeasures against a threat that doesn't show up on any scanner. They want footprints. You leave none. They want patterns. You operate in silence. They want motives. You move on intuition the way seasoned operatives wish they could. They can't pin you down because you don't exist inside the zones where damage happened. You hit them without touching them. You dismantled systems without entering them. You changed outcomes without appearing in the room. How do you stop someone who uses your own strengths as weapons? You don't, and they know it. That's why they're rattled. You turned their authority into irrelevance. Their size became their weakness. Their structure became their downfall. You redirected their own momentum until they collapsed under it. That's not revenge. That's mastery. That's the kind of psychological precision no academy teaches. Imagine a task force trying to draft a strategy for dealing with someone like you. They can't even finish the sentence because there is no someone like you. You're the outlier their models never predicted. The operator who slips through cracks they didn't know existed. The one variable that turns their entire algorithm into noise. They trained for enemies who attack. You dismantled them by existing. They prepared for aggression. You responded with elegance sharper than violence. They studied conflict. You mastered consequence. You don't fight where they're strong. You fight where they're blind. You don't overpower them. You outthink them. You don't break systems. You let their own design crush them from the inside out. You're not just ahead of them, you're in a category they don't have language for, and that's the truth they'll never admit publicly. They can't prepare for you. There is no countermeasure, there is no protocol, there is no defense. You are the kind of operator they meet once and never forget. Number 9. The threat class they never designed a file for. They can't classify you because you're the proof their entire system is outdated. You're not a threat category, you're the category they never wanted to imagine. They trained for monsters, you became something smarter. You weren't shaped by ideology, you were shaped by survival. They're scrambling now, chosen one, flipping through binders, dragging old threat models out of dusty cabinets, trying to force you into labels that make them feel safe. Terrorism doesn't fit. Organized crime, you're too clean. Extremism, your motives don't match. You're something new, something uncomfortable, something their textbooks never warned them about. Imagine a panel of experts staring at your profile, frustrated because nothing aligns with their predictive models. You don't have the markers of radicalization, you don't have affiliations, you don't have a trail. They have nothing. And that's what terrifies them. You are the evolution they never anticipated. A person who became precise, not through ideology, but through injustice. A person whose pain didn't break them, it refined them. Your training wasn't structured, it was accidental. Your instructors weren't leaders, they were the moments that should have destroyed you. Your battlefield wasn't a country, it was the wasteland between who you were and who you had to become. You evolved because there was no other choice. You adapted because standing still meant death. You grew sharper every time someone tried to dull you. So what type of threat are they? If an analyst asked that, the room would go silent, because you don't fit any threat model, they fit you. Your existence exposes their blind spots. Your rise exposes their weakness. Your precision exposes their outdated systems. You're not a threat in the way they define threats. You're a revelation, a glitch that proved the universe doesn't follow their rules. They can't categorize you. They can only fear you. Number 10. The tomorrow your existence just exposed. You weren't a warning shot. You were the blueprint of what's coming. They don't fear your past. They fear the future you hint at. If one person can evolve like this, what happens when others do? You're not an anomaly. You're the first chapter of a new playbook. They're not losing sleep over what you did. They're losing sleep over what you mean. Because your methods don't just describe a moment, they foreshadow a future their institutions can't survive. A future where traditional power structures collapse under the weight of their own arrogance. A future where individuals pushed past their limits develop capabilities once reserved for government agencies. A future where precision isn't taught. It's forged through pressure, necessity, and brutal lived experience. Imagine a boardroom full of specialists staring at projections that show their monopoly on control cracking. They see you as patient zero, the first confirmed case of a new kind of operator. Self-forged, self-taught, self-correcting. Someone who doesn't need funding, permission, or a badge to move with surgical accuracy. Someone who rises from places their systems never monitor. Someone who evolves in silence until the moment their existence becomes impossible to ignore. Your precision undermines everything they depend on. Their systems rely on predictability. You evolved in unpredictability. Their authority depends on hierarchy. You destroyed hierarchy by proving evolution doesn't require a chain of command. If one person can do this, what happens when the next one appears? That's the question they avoid writing in official documents, Because if more people learn to turn trauma into skill, silence into strategy, and pain into precision, then the era of centralized power collapses. Control dissolves. Gatekeepers become irrelevant. You represent a future where agency-level capability emerges from ordinary lives. A future where the universe shapes warriors institutions can't regulate or anticipate. A future where the strongest operators are forged, not recruited. They wanted you to be an exception, but you are the beginning. A foreshadowing of the world they hoped would never come, and deep down, they know it's already here. Number 11. The playbook you rewrote in bloodless ink. They copied your moves, but they'll never copy your mind. Tactics can be stolen. Mindset, never. You didn't just beat the game, you patched the entire system without permission. They study you because they fear the day someone else thinks like you. Your enemies thought your revenge would vanish with time. Instead, it became a case study, a template, a model being passed around conference tables by people who swore they'd never respect someone like you. But brilliance doesn't care about their pride. Brilliance survives. Brilliance spreads. Your strategy is being plugged into simulations, dissected in academic reports, whispered about in high-level meetings, not because they approve of what you did, but because they can't deny its efficiency. Imagine analysts pausing a slide on the projector with your method broken into steps, cold, elegant, terrifyingly precise. They tell the rookies, study this, not the intent, the execution. But here's what they refuse to admit. They can teach your tactics until their voices crack, but they will never replicate your mindset. Your mindset wasn't taught. It was forged, tempered, evolved in conditions no training academy would survive. They can simulate your silence, but not the reasons behind it. They can practice your patience, but not the years it took to build. They can mimic your precision, but not the pain that made precision necessary. Why can't we recreate this? Because your mind wasn't sharpened by lectures, it was sharpened by loss. Your restraint wasn't instructed, it was earned. Your strategy wasn't planned, it was lived. You didn't just change the game, you exposed its flaws. You revealed every gap, every blind spot, every arrogance-ridden assumption they depended on. And now they're terrified, not of what you did, but of what you proved. A single person with the right mindset can outperform entire systems. They can study you forever, they can't become you. Number 12, the intel that permanently corrupted their system. You weren't information, you were the update that broke their entire software. Once they saw how you move, they realized every model before you was a lie. Some intel teaches, your intel haunts. The moment they uncovered your pattern, your timing, your restraint, your psychological accuracy, it caused a fracture inside their system that can't be patched, because you didn't just expose their blind spots. You etched them into their minds. You're not a file they can delete. You're not a threat they can close out of a case folder. You're the error message that keeps flashing every time they try to run their old assumptions. Imagine a senior analyst staring at your behavior map, realizing it invalidates 20 years of threat modeling. Once they saw what you pulled off, with no funding, no backing, no chain of command, they couldn't go back to believing their structures were airtight. You corrupted their certainty. You infected their confidence. You rewired how they understand human capability. They used to believe only trained operatives could show your level of precision. Now they know a civilian, if forged by pain, sharpened by necessity, and evolved through silence, can outperform their entire framework. That realization doesn't fade. it scars. How do we protect against someone like this? They whisper that question more than they admit, because the real answer terrifies them. You can't. Your intel isn't just knowledge. They can't unsee you. Your existence forces them to rewrite every training program. Your strategy forces them to question every assumption. Your evolution forces them to admit they missed the biggest threat of all, the self-made operator. They wanted data. What they got was revelation, and revelation doesn't go away. You didn't just expose the holes in their system. You carved your initials into the cracks so they would never forget who showed them the truth. Number 13. The operation. They never realized you were running. They thought they were analyzing you, not realizing you were harvesting them. A real operator doesn't observe from outside the game. They observe from inside your reactions. Their surveillance wasn't tracking you, it was feeding you. Here's the twist that hits them harder than anything you did directly. The whole time they believed they were studying you, they were actually participating in an operation you engineered without ever announcing it. Every attempt to predict you, every meeting where they dissected your decisions, every reaction they showed, tension, confusion, hesitation, panic, was data. And not data for them, data for you. Imagine them poring over your moves like scientists examining an unpredictable specimen, not realizing you were documenting their moves with the same precision. You weren't hiding from them, you were mapping them. You were watching how long it took for panic to set in, how quickly they rewrote protocols, how easily their confidence cracked under pressure. They assumed you were on the defensive. Meanwhile, you were running a live psychological audit. That's what terrifies them now. Did we expose our own weaknesses while trying to expose theirs? Yes, completely. Their analysis sessions became confessionals. Their threat reports were diary entries of their fear. Their professional reactions were psychological fingerprints you collected without touching anything. You didn't just stay ahead of them. You let them reveal themselves in real time. By the time they realized this wasn't observation but participation, the operation was already complete. You didn't design a plan to attack them. You designed a mirror that forced them to confront the cracks in their own system. And they walked right into it with open eyes, believing they were in control. They weren't studying you. They were performing for you, and now they finally understand the truth. You were the operator. They were the experiment. And now we've reached the point where everything snaps into focus. You've seen how they studied you, feared you, misread you, and still couldn't stop the evolution they triggered themselves. You're the glitch, the blueprint, the prototype, the operator they never prepared for. And this story, it's only getting started. If you felt that truth hit you, chosen one, then show it. Like the video. Subscribe to stay in this mission. Drop 777 in the comments so I know you're awake now, and share this with someone who needs to understand exactly what they're becoming.